Welcome to Magic Gathering Strat. I'm Dan, and we are going to try to solve the Competitive Pauper Cast sound problems by me doing a backup recording, and that's what you're going to see on YouTube because it is the fastest upload. So I'm waiting for them to call me. Mr. Weaver here. And yeah, then we will have an excellent podcast. While we're waiting for Chris, me and David, David is discussing this combo deck that he thought of before Baldur's Spy was even released, and I'm starting to get my head around. I'm trying to get my head around it. Empty the Warrens was banned just before Baldur's Spy was printed. So, but look at the land count: 1 forest. This sounds like kind of an interesting deck. Let's see if we talk about it on the show.
Hello.
Hi there.
You guys are up early. Say you guys are up earlier than I thought you were going to be.
Oh.
Can you hear the background music?
Yes.
No. Welcome back to Competitive Pauper Cast. This is episode 11. We don't really have a title for this one, but I'm Chris, and with me is the ever-pleasant Dan.
Hej på er, sjösjuka jävlar.
And we have, calling us from a can, David Schaffer.
Hey guys, calling for my car, so it sounds like I'm in a tin can.
Well, today we're going to basically make up lost ground for last week and the week before. Last week we didn't cast because of audio issues. We think we have those fixed now. Go ahead and let us know what you think in the comments. And
aside from me, because I'm well aware I'm in a tin can.
No, now you sound perfect because we started making fun of you. So
okay,
you sound perfect. Good. Awesome. And the week before we talked about BorosKitty with Dromar X, and the audio issues were pretty bad there too. So we took a week off and made sure that we could fix our audio issues. And now we have. I'm on a new computer, and Dan is also recording here, so hopefully we will not sound like robots and/or that we're being terrorized by demons.
Hopefully.
So Dan, what do you got for us for finance?
I want to tell people who actually bought Ninja of the Deep Hours and Serum Visions. Was it 2 weeks we talked about that?
I think the last time we cast we talked about it, yeah.
I bought the Serum Visions immediately.
Ninja of the Deep Hours is up 200%. And Serum Visions is similar, I think. It went up another like 30% today. If you bought it at the bottom, it's 200% now. But my advice would be to hold on to them, actually, because I can see them going much higher.
I'm actually so glad you told me to do that, because I've been meaning to get the last 2 Serum Visions for a modern Storm deck I had. But I didn't want to spend like $3 on commons that I would only play in modern. You know.
I'm glad to be of service.
I bought them at 35 cents.
Nice. Right now I think Waltz of Whispers is perhaps because black was cut from the Affinity decks, but I don't think that will be the case forever. And I also think the Affinity lands will see a boost come summer from Vintage Masters. And yeah, so Waltz of Whispers is my tip this week. It's at 15 cents right now.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. Looking at all the other stuff in the Affinity list, there's really not too much else you can pick up. I guess I picked up Gorilla Shamans recently here at about 3 ticks a piece, up to 5.
That was pretty cheap.
So, yeah, it wasn't like
3 tickets. Wow.
Before it was way before the bannings. So.
Oh, they're probably way high.
Yeah, I picked up Gorilla Shamans because I've always wanted them in Mox Monkeys and Vintage Masters. I knew they were coming out pretty soon, so I knew that Gorilla Shamans were going to be pretty big when Vintage Masters hits.
Okay, one more thing about the financial done, that be aware that anything that is reprintable in Vintage Masters, such as all the Masters Edition cards and everything, pretty much everything before Modern and perhaps everything before Mirrodin and perhaps even the Mirrodin cards, could be commons in Vintage Masters. and if they are, we're looking at 40-cent daisies, 20-cent gushes. So I am selling everything, all the Pauper cards that are pre-mirrored in now, because they could just be crushed by Vintage Masters.
Oh, you're selling them all now?
Yes,
They
because
haven't
they
even
haven't
started
fallen
spoiling.
yet, but they will fall.
So they haven't even started spoiling this stuff yet.
Yeah, but it's 239 cards, and some cards, there have been some pretty good speculation on what cards will be included, and Gush, for example, is a pretty important card. And it's highly likely to be printed in Vintage Masters. And Days, very likely as well, especially if they don't print Force of Will.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I would be very scared of everything that is
Alrighty.
mirrored in.
So what have you guys been playing?
I've been playing a lot of a deck I sort of discussed in an article a little bit ago. But then I decided to bring it back because I was brewing with it before Empty the Warrens was banned and before Balustrade Spy was released. There was like a little period of time when I was dinking around with Driver of the Dead as Balustrade Spy in a 1-mana combo deck, or 1-land combo deck, that had Empty the Warrens, kind of like Special Kyle's Empty the Warrens deck. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it
I
was
played
uses
against
like
that.
the Tinder Walls, and it could turn 1 kill you on occasion. So I had that sort of with like fewer lands than he was running, but then backed up with Balustrade Spy into like Conjurer's Bauble, and then enough creatures to Haunting Misery you out. And so now I've gone back to it because the format is so much slower. Counter Magic is so much less relevant. And Mono Black is irritating when they make you discard, but there's often a lot of times you draw redundant copies of the cards you need for this combo. And it's been pretty fun. It usually wins like turn 4 or turn 5, which is kind of slow, but when you're looking at Tron decks that really can only beat you by playing Fangren Marauder before you go off, I don't know. I like my odds. So I've been experimenting with that a lot. I actually think, given the right meta circumstances, it could see some competitive play. But I've also been playing a lot of Azorius Kitty in competitive matches. I think, maybe not a lot, but I've gotten in 2 dailies in the last week, and 3-1 one and 2-2 the other. So it seems like an okay deck.
With you've 3-1 with the Haunting Misery deck?
No, the Azorius Kitty.
Azorius Kitty, okay.
I haven't taken the Haunting Misery deck to a daily yet, but I probably will at some point, just if for no other reason than for fun, because it's kind of like playing bingo. You just sort of sit there and you wait, and you're like, is this the Balustrade Spy? It is, I win. Or it's like, is this a Balustrade Spy? No, it's just another land grant. Okay, go.
The deck looks fantastic.
Yeah, I shared it with Dan.
You have to didn't share that with me.
I would have shared it with you before, Chris, because I like to normally test with you, but you always play hyper interactive decks, and I didn't want to play with you because I knew you'd be like, all right, let's play, and then you'd bring Delver, and I'd be like, I just can't beat that deck.
Yeah, I learned something about myself here recently. I like playing tempo decks. I can't play control decks, and when I play a control deck, I try to play it like a tempo deck, and that's why I suck with control. Because I really just want to win in the next 5 or 6 turns. It's like I got to remember that I can't do that with control decks. So with Azorius Kitty, when I'm playing that, I'll try and reality acid everything, like without regards to like, oh, it's a Frogman, but reality acid that thing because I have a Score Skyfisher in my hand. So. Yeah,
that's a long-term plan deck.
Yeah, and so I've been trying a lot of control decks to play them, and I took Azorius Kitty to a daily. It was a different one than what you used to run.
Is it the one with like more creatures?
Yeah, it was.
That's what I took to the daily too. I wanted just to see how the deck played with the modifications other people have made.
Yeah, and I like Seagate Oracle for sure. That's a pretty sweet addition to the deck that people have made. Because anymore, Spreading Seas isn't the complete blowout it used to be able to be.
That's true.
Because everyone's playing islands, so.
Or it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'd say. Or it just doesn't matter because people are playing 24-land decks, so. Yeah, I took that to a daily. I went 2-2 in that one, but what I've been playing mostly, actually, is mono blue decks, just tempo decks in general. Played Azorius Kitty, or not Azorius Kitty, Illusory Tricks, and I recorded that to a 3-1.
I saw that. That looked pretty sweet.
That was good.
Yeah, it was. It was surprisingly well positioned for the metagame, because what I found with the mono black control decks that have been, basically wrecking Delver and whatnot, they're not running enough removal anymore, right? They're not running Cryptrat's main deck. These decks have gone to basically the all-in corrupt Grey Merchant plan, and you throw a few counter spells on the way there, and you daze a few removal spells, and bam, you win.
Nice.
All of a sudden you're. So that's it's kind of a hole in the metagame right now. And Affinity is sort of the same way. Affinity is just trying to draw a million cards, but they're not playing the actual threats, so you can just tempo them out with Vapor Snags and counter spells. So.
Yeah.
And I think
You
that's why
like that more than Delver right now?
I sort of do, because the mono black control decks are still running Kumbaya Witches.
Yeah, that to me is the main reason to move to bigger, fatter creatures.
Yep. So if I can get a Dreamstalker on the table, and then I start playing my Krovikan Mists, they can't Kumbaya Witch it out. Whereas they can continue to do that with Spellstutter Sprites and Cloud Fairies, but to top it all off, too, with the mono black control decks, they're not running on Earths anymore. And that used to be the thing that completely wrecked me. It'd be like, okay, well, I spell-started your Kumbaya Witches, but then you unearthed them. So I was like, oh, well, I guess you have Kumbaya Witches on the table, and it's just going to wreck me for the rest of the game. And they're not running on Earths anymore, which I approve of as the mono blue tempo player.
Trix also has a very strong Delver matchup, it seems. At least from my experience, and Bava's.
Yeah, I didn't play against Delver in either of the two dailies I played with it. I took it to 2-3-1s. I ended up losing once to a mono black control deck, which if you watch the videos, it was a really, really close matchup that I could have won. And Tarkin Mag is a very, very good player too.
Yes.
So, props to him for beating me there. But I feel like if I'm playing Illusory Tricks, if I draw well, I don't think I can lose.
Regarding the mirror there, the Tricks versus Delver, when you play the Delver mirror, it's all about the Spire Golems.
Yeah.
But then you suddenly have like, oh, this is my Krovikan Mist, he's 8/8.
Yeah.
You go like, what?
The Krovikan Mist is an 8/8. The Cloudfin Raptor can attack through 3 Spire Golems.
Yeah.
And then you back it up with like a Piracy Charm, and it's like, well, I'll just kill all your 3 Spire Golems.
Yeah, the creatures are just so big in that deck, and when Baba first put the list out, I think he was running a lot more of those Stormbound Geists than I approved of. But now those cards seem insane in the meta.
They are absolutely ridiculous.
And the thing I didn't realize about them at the time when I was like, I should cut them, is that you can actually double level up your Cloudfin Raptor with them.
Yes.
So they're pretty insano. And then against all the Edict effects, it's like, oh, so you're casting a spell to give me +1/+1? Okay, that sounds fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and against Cryptrats it's pretty good too.
Yeah, against Cryptrats they have to rat themselves for 5, which is usually enough for you to kind of squeeze in a win. And even if they do that, you can still Vapor Snag your dude, or let's say they kill it once and they're planning on killing it again on their next turn. Well, you attack with it as a 3/3, and then you play a Dreamstalker, bounce it back to your hand, and you play it again, and they have to deal with it twice again, and they wasted a removal spell. So yeah, there's a lot of 2-for-1 opportunities there, and the other really, really powerful card that I'm playing with is Fathom Seer. It's like,
yeah, that's the best part of that deck. That and Dreamstalker.
Yeah, Fathom Seer was just insane. And that's one of the way that I beat the mono black control decks now with that deck. I have a 6-4 record against mono black now.
Nice.
I think a lot of the losses that I've done here or that I've had against mono black control have just basically been bad draws. But the way I beat the mono black control decks now is just drawing a ton of cards, via bouncing Fathom Seers, and I put Mole Drifters in the sideboard, which I think this might be the first deck ever that I've ever seen that has Mole Drifters in the sideboard instead of the main.
Could be.
Yeah, and then the Mole Drifters are just, another threat they have to deal with. You draw a lot of cards, they have to waste a removal spell on it, and yeah, the deck is just absolutely ridiculous. I'm probably taking it to another daily event. For sure. Might have to replace the Piracy Charms with just regular old counterspells, Deprives, or Psychic Barriers. I'm not sure which ones yet.
Yeah, that is still the weak spot in the list.
Yep.
They
but sometimes
were pretty useful in the Gauntlet when I managed not to screw them up.
Yeah, they're pretty weak though. Honestly,
Yeah.
they are the weakest part of the deck, for sure, and that's what I'm going to be replacing.
One thing I've been thinking about is Snapback. You know that card that's like basically an unsummon for 2, but you also have the ability to discard a card to cast it.
Yes,
Or like
I
exile
sideboarded
card.
that in during the Infect days.
Well, one of the things that's interesting about the Illusionary Tricks deck is that it's sort of like turn 1 you're playing a guy, turn 2 you're playing a guy, turn 3 you're playing a guy, turn 4 I can finally hold up counter magic. And then and that's why Daze is so good in that list, is because you can actually counter stuff early. And why you want a 1 mana removal spell or 1 mana cheap instant spell is so that you can go maybe turn 1 guy, turn 2 Delver, hold up Piracy Charm. But if you could have some other spell that's 1 mana, or that you can cast even if you don't have any mana available, that's like the option, like the spell we're looking for to fill that slot. And so Snapback's the one I've been thinking of. I don't know how good that is, but there's very limited options for a spell that fills Piracy Charm's role.
Yeah.
Did you play Snap?
I did not play Vapor Snags.
Okay.
That actually, in that list, Vapor Snag is actually better because
Why?
because you're much more relying on, it's much less control heavy, so you are definitely trying to win on like turn 5 through 8, and the 1 life from the Vapor Snag actually makes a bigger difference than Snap and leaving up counter magic.
You can't do the spell stutter trick, which was like
Yeah.
the best part of Snap.
Yeah, that's also true. Is you can't do the spell starter trick, and the Illusory Tricks is much more aggro leaning than the control leaning. Whereas when I play Delver, it's you're much more playing as a control deck than an aggro deck.
All right.
But Illusory Tricks, you're playing out your dudes every turn, and you really like snapping during your turn is just not that profitable. You really want to try and Vapor Snag at the end of their turn and make them ping them for 1 and attack for near lethal the next turns.
Well, if you, the listener, don't know what we're talking about, we'll include links to an Illusory Tricks deck list in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll just link it to my video there. You can see how I played it.
Yeah.
I want to pick up some more Dazes, so I think I want to add another Daze to the list because it was when I had it was so good.
I think I tested with 3 at the time.
And
They were unbelievable. I thought they were the best card in the deck, and I know Baba didn't want to go get them. Which is
yeah,
fine.
I don't really blame them. They're really expensive.
But if you want, especially in light of what Dan said about finances, you can borrow mine because I have, 4 right now. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I have 2. I'm not gonna sell mine. Whoa, what the heck just happened there? Okay. Sorry, folks. Apparently, my computer has breast cancer.
Oh no.
So yeah, I'm gonna put up the link there for my deck. But anyway, hey Dan, what have you been playing?
I finished the Pauper Gauntlet. Illusory Tricks managed to lose against Slivers in round 9, whereas BorosKitty crushed mono blue control deck. So BorosKitty won the Pauper Gauntlet, and Tom the Scud won the Steam Wins competition and got 4 Steam Wins. And TurboKitty 3000 is the master brewer of the Pauper Gauntlet.
Nice.
I've also played a lot of classic Heirloom, Standard Pauper, and Modern.
What is Heirloom?
Heirloom is the best budget format I ever seen. It's it only works on Magic Online. It will never ever be sanctioned as it relies entirely on secondary market prices. You can play any card that is on Magic Online as long as it costs less than 10 cents if it's common, 20 cents if it is an uncommon, 40 cents for rare, and $1 for a mythic. And 5 cards are banned. So that means that you have the sort of full power of rare and mythics, but only the ones that are old and that people hate, and many that are outside, many rares that are not in modern, so they are not very attractive, but they are insanely powerful. So you get a format that is cheaper than Pauper. I have spent 3 tickets on 3 decks, and I had a lot of the cards, but I got a top 4 in a 42-man tournament.
Yeah, I see those like crazy. They're huge.
Yeah, they're huge, and they are not existing anymore because of scandals in the Heirloom world, but I hope they will be back. But you have cheap decks and very, very deep decks, like all the premier decks of Standards past will be there, except for Affinity and Caw-Blade. And you can sort of, it's extremely, it's varied. It's like such a deep format. So I'm really impressed with it.
What are the banned cards?
I don't know in my head. I'll try to look it up here.
The other question
They
I had
made
about
sense.
that format is how, so like if your deck gets popular like 1 week and then
Every other month the ban list is updated. There is an emergency ban if a rare goes over $1 and some other level for a mythic. Or there are emergency levels for bans. They use MTGO traders as the only judge of prices. But
if you have a tournament 1 week,
yes,
and then like your deck is like insane and everyone buys your cards to copy you,
yeah, but
like,
they have to
then
go
the
over
next
the
week-
emergency level then, which is much higher than the legality
see.
level. So usually it has also the best. It's an eternal format, but it rotates every other month based on popularity then. Because if a card, Heirloom can in itself push a 37-cent card to 41 cents, and then it's banned for 2 months or 1 month. I'm not really sure. And that means that it has the best, it has like the eternal quality that you can return to an old deck, but then it rotates as well. So Mist Hollow Griffin, for example, just rotated, or was just banned actually, because it was dominating the format.
What?
I had to let that one sink in, folks.
Yeah, and it's really crazy, and it dominated format in a control deck that would like wreck modern decks. It was really evil, that control deck.
How did it exile this thing?
There is a card for that. Exile 3 of your cards in your deck. Draw a card.
Huh.
So you exile your 3 Mist Hollow Griffins, and then you can go to town. And then the rest of the deck is just extremely rough control then.
So when I first came back to Magic and Dark Ascension, I was pretty excited about Miss Hollow Griffin because I was playing a surgical extraction. I was like, "Oh, this is sweet! I can surgical extract my own Miss Hollow Griffin, and then I can cast." Oh, that's really not very good, is it? It's just a bunch of 3/3 flyers.
Because the tournament is not running this Sunday, I can't find the ban list. So, yeah. We'll link to that later if we find one. But it's gone right now. Okay, enough with the Heirloom stuff. Back to Pauper.
Yeah, we've been doing with Pauper. I know you had some comments earlier.
About Trinket?
About Trinket.
Yeah, first I've been practicing some Pauper. I've been playing the Rugtron deck, I've been playing in Grey Merchant MBC, and a little Peerless Affinity. Trinket Control dropped from the 5th place in the metagame and disappeared entirely. It's not in the top 13 on Goldfish right now. And I have 3 theories why. The first and the least likely theory is that Trinket can't handle Grey Merchant, so that the mono-black control matchup is now bad from being really, really good. But I don't know if that's the case. It might be the case. My second theory, which is a little better, is that Trinket can't beat the Tron deck. But the Tron deck is only in 12th place. But the Tron deck has all of the qualities that made Simic Stormpost so hard. Except for the Fisher, but it's still a really hard matchup. And my third and best theory, then, which might be the case, is that whereas Affinity was a very easy matchup for Trinket before, the way Trinket lost was that Affinity went Atog Fling. And now Affinity draws so many cards that Affinity will have the time to go Atog Fling in every single game. So that the Affinity matchup has now become unbeatable for Trinket, and that is what killed it. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, my theory also would be, with mono-black control, you come up against a lot of lists that are mono-black control are just running 4 corrupts. And can Trinket really beat that?
Yeah,
I don't think
4 corrupts is not very dangerous. But the life gain from the Grey Merchants would be much harder. That it happens a turn earlier if you can reuse the Grey Merchants. Because we've handled corrupt NBC decks for a long time. And it's a 6-mana spell, it's so late. And there are so many options to sort of get rid of it before it's cast.
Okay. Alright.
We didn't even sideboard the rest against mono black control because it wasn't needed.
Huh. Yeah, that's right. You told me about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Trinket's pretty bad. Looking at the metagame here, though, we've got 17% mono black control, 12% Affinity, and 10% Delver are your top lists. But right after that, you have Burn at 7%.
That might be another reason why Trinket is bad now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
mono black control should have all these problems as well, except for the Grey Merchant one. Mono black control has a bad burn matchup.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
Perilous Affinity should beat it. And the Tron deck is making its entire existence based on mono black control.
Yeah, it's also
the
Tron deck is also preying upon Affinity. Right?
And Kitty decks. It's Turbo Kitty has been talking to me a lot about it, and he's been doing a ton of work with Tron lately. And he says that it's basically just auto wins against mono black and Kitty decks. I guess
any deck that's not fast enough.
Yeah.
See, I've been playing with Sneak Attack Kid's mono black list, and I actually find Tron a pretty decent matchup for that list. Here, I'll link that one to you guys.
His deck is a lot faster.
Well, I actually saw on Twitter that Sneak Attack Kid beat Turbo Kitty the other day. And then he just went crazy about it. He was very upset, apparently.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, Sneak Attack Kid's much better pilot than I am with the deck, but this type of a deck is the kind of control deck that I like playing, because it plays much more like a tempo deck than an actual control deck. You know, I think it's mostly because of Okiba Gangs, but that card's so good. So, yeah, I've been finding that mono black control lists, especially this one, you know, if you can just Okiba Gang them once, they pretty much lose. If that Okiba Gang hits once, they lose. Because then they have to try and deal with it the next turn. They don't really have instant speed removal in that Tron deck.
But the problem with the Tron deck, like the old Stormpost decks, is that they can recover from nothing so easily.
Yeah.
Because, of course, Trinket can Augur of Skullsit to no cards, but that's not the problem, because they just have to top deck a Muldrift and then they win.
Yep. But the mono black control deck can keep them off of creatures long enough that you can keep hitting with the Okiba Gangs or the 2/2s or whatever. And
but what I'm saying is that Ukibagang is mostly a hill giant in that matchup.
No, I don't agree. I think I talked to Chris about this before. When I played blue-green fissure all the time, and my opponent played swamp, I was like, oh, nice, I win for a really long time. And then people started playing Okibagangs against me, and occasionally I would lose. So I'd drop from like close to 100% to like 90%, because if they can turn 4 if they can turn 3 Chittering Rats, turn 4 Okibagang me, I would sometimes I'd just like all my plans would go away. I'd lose all my cards too quickly, and there'd be enough pressure on me where I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Which I think is maybe part of the reason why you see fire bolts in there as ways to counteract some of the discard effects and still have access to effective card advantage. So Okibagang to me, in almost any time I play against Mono Black, when they go turn 3 guy, turn 4 attack me, I'm just always, my fingers are always crossed. Like, do not Okibagang me right now. If you do, I lose.
Yeah,
it's like it's not recovery.
Like, I've noticed that when I'm playing against Mono Black control decks, if they Okibang me, it feels a million times worse than when I get ninja'd from Delver. Because Okibagang, it does such a wrecking to your hand. You don't realize how attached you are to your cards until you get Okibaganged.
Yeah.
And then you get this feeling of dread, like, great, now I'm gonna get Okibagang, and he has like 3 Guess Verdicts in his hand. So I can never block it. So he's just going to completely wreck my hand, and there's pretty much nothing I can do about it. And like the next turn or it gets even worse, like you get turn 1 Duress, turn 3 Chittering Rat, and then turn 4 Okibagang, and your hand is now like 2 cards.
Why not throw in a turn 2 Ravenous Rat?
You're
going through that.
Yeah. Most of the lists have gone away from Ravenous Rats. I'm actually thinking about going back to them because they make the burn matchup so much better when you have Ravenous Rats in the deck.
The problem with Ravenous Rats is that they are 2-for-1, but one of the halves of the 2-for-1 is pointless.
Yeah, it's pretty worthless, but it does attack.
Unless you can recur it with a ninja.
Yeah, so it does attack, and it's a ninja. It's a ninja target. Well, yeah, I'm gonna remove all your creatures, so it does attack.
All right. Yeah,
anyway,
they beat up standard bears all day.
Hey, you laugh, but standard bears are kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, they are.
Actually, no. Sneak attack has moved away from Ravenous Rats in its deck, so
yeah, I think
I probably will
should
too.
never be played in any deck, pretty much.
It's always the worst card in your deck, but sometimes it needs to be there.
Yeah. Where Okibagang really shines, in my experience, is against any deck that tries to counterspell you.
Yeah.
Then it's really, really good, but so is Ninja of the Deep Hours, of course.
Yeah. So that's the other big thing that I've noticed about the meta right now is counterspells are insanely good. I don't know why so few people are playing them. I mean, I say so few people, but we have 10% of the meta is Delver, and then 5% is Mono Blue Control, but counterspells
That's still really low, though. That is at a point where I disregard counter magic, which is why I'm working with this combo list. 15% is almost, to me, insignificant when you're looking at trying to 3-1 a daily or 4-0, you know, because what does that mean? Like every other tournament you do, you'll run into a blue deck?
Yes.
Well, I'm willing to take 1 loss every 8 matchups to make sure I have a deck that can beat everything else I play.
You make a really good point there. If you look at the most played cards in Pauper, it used to be like 9 blue cards.
Yeah.
But now only Hydroblast, Preordained, and Delver are on the list. Wow.
And I bet those are all falling too, because those are all cards that would be in Wii Fiend or Delver Fiend.
Yeah, but Delver Fiend is... it's not... it's
not dead, but it's definitely reduced than it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah. It's number 5. It's before Mono Blue Control.
You guys looking at Goldfish, I assume?
Yep.
I'm looking at MTGO stats. So.
But they usually are quite similar. So what
Yeah, I
place
think
do you have?
Goldfish goes back a little bit further.
What place do you have Delver Fiend in?
Delver Fiend is in 6th for me.
Alright, yeah. There's usually just 1 or 2 spots removed from...
Yeah, I'm just looking at the most popular cards here.
And where's Stompy? 11th.
Poor Stompy.
Yeah.
Stompy's just not very good in the current format.
That surprised me. I'm not gonna lie. I really thought that of the aggressive deck was gonna work, it'd be Stompy because it's so resilient.
Yeah.
And so, even for how much I bag on it, I still thought it would be doing a lot better than it is.
Yeah, it turns out whenever you start removing all the creatures with mono black control, or throwing a bunch of big affinity things in the way, like Mirror Enforcers and Carapace Forgers and whatnot, then back it up with Galvanic Blasts.
Its only really good matchup in the top 6 is mono blue control.
Delver too.
Yeah, but that isn't a super good matchup. It's okay, but...
Well, I think it's actually a much better matchup than you think.
I think it's
Stompy.
at most 60-40 between 2 competent players.
If you put 2 pilots of equal skill against each other, Stompy's going to win. I would say 75% of the time. Because Scattershot Archers completely wreck it. So
75% is a lot.
Well, fortunately, we don't need to worry about that anymore because neither of those decks are doing absurdly well.
Delver's third.
Yeah. I don't know. It's okay. Delver's... I don't know. I don't know if I'd play Delver right now if I ever played serious decks. It just seems... It'll beat that Tron deck that's coming up, but...
Yes.
Delver is probably relying on a lot of good players refusing to change their deck.
That's kind of what I think too.
Huh.
It's still the best deck in a vacuum, but the meta's kind of set up to beat it pretty handedly, in my opinion.
Well,
there's a lot of mono white, there's a lot of mono black.
Against number 4 and 5. So it's better positioned than
I don't know what those are.
Burn and Delver Fiend.
Oh. Yeah. Burn's a great choice. So maybe Delver is a great counter to that great choice.
Yeah, and like I said, the mono black control lists are mostly moving towards the all-in gray merchant plan, and they're not running Crypt Rats or Unearths. So Delver's actually okay there. And I've beaten... I'm like 2-2 in daily events with blue tempo decks that are not Delver.
Except that they want Kumbai Witches for their devotion count.
Yep. They want the Kumbai Witches, so, that kind of sucks for Delver, but if they're not running Earths, then I can counterspell the Kumbai Witches on the way back down after a snap, and tempo them out after that. And then Affinity is so threat light now that, you just have to worry about, basically just about countering the Mirror Forces, and you'll be fine.
They only have 3 of those these days, apparently.
Yeah. They've gone down to 3, so you save your counter spells for Mirror Enforcers, and then you spell stutter Atogs and Carapace Forgers, and you win. And they actually can't do anything about that. So, I think the 2 top lists in the meta are very well set up to not beat Delver, like they should be able to. Affinity Mono Black Control should regularly beat Delver pretty handily in a vacuum, and the pilots have set up their decks such that they're not going to have as good of a Delver matchup.
Well, that makes sense to me. And maybe that's just a change we see waffle back and forth, because I don't know, if I'm the mono black player, my opponent goes turn on Lightning Bolt, I'm really happy that my Gray Merchant in hand is a Gray Merchant instead of some sort of removal spell.
Yeah.
And or an Earth or something, because I can actually get the life back, which is when you gain life against the burn player, it's like making them discard cards.
Yep.
So it's like the super rat at the top of the curve. So
wow, you have 9 life gain spells in a typical mono black control.
Yeah,
list.
And that's probably in response to burn, because
and
burn
2
has
main deck duress.
Yeah. Well, the two main deck duress is mostly coming from people like me who are copying Sneak Attack Kid. I don't think the merchant decks are running main deck duresses.
Oh. But the rest is pretty
Oh,
good
maybe they are.
to main
Never
deck
mind.
against burn.
Yeah. Never mind, they are. Apparently, looking at Sasa Vegeta's list, it's got two duresses in the main.
So where do you guys think the meta's going to go? And like, go soon? Do you think Delver's going to come back? Do you think Toronto's going to go up? What do you think are the risers and fallers right now?
I think it is.
I guess.
Oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I think Tron is up. It's on its way up. It's preys upon the top two lists, and it's actually a decent deck. Played it a little bit. It's okay. Most of the time, it's hoping on your opponent not having a counterspell, but other than that, it's actually a pretty good deck, and it plays much like Simic Stormpost, where you cycle through your deck. You know, you get a big threat on the table, and you Rolling Thunder them for 1 million, and they lose. So I think Tron is on its way up for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I was talking to Dan about this on YouTube. That I originally thought you couldn't do it. I didn't think you could make a Tron deck that was like the Simic Stormpost list. And there's a lot of reasons why I didn't think it was a good idea. And all of those reasons disappeared with the way the new meta is shaped up. I did not expect that 15% of the meta would have the ability, only 15% of the meta would have the ability to counter your big spells. Because one of the big concerns is we lose Fissure, so when Fissure goes away, your ability to make your mono blue opponent run out of mana goes away too. So I was concerned about that. Then I was also concerned that you would just get steamrolled by aggressive decks, but they're gone, so that's not a possibility. And then I guess the last thing I was concerned about is that when you have 4 Cloud Posts and a Glimmer Post, you can Caravex Torch for the win, but it takes like 10 or 12, I can't remember, Urza lands to do that, to X for lethal. But the format is so slow that like taking twice as long is not really that big of a deal anymore.
I discovered that it was really hard to cast a lethal burn spell with the deck, but note that they run Rolling Thunder, not torches, because I think they use these. They will kill with them, of course, but it doesn't happen as often as it does in Simic Stormpost. Because the times I won with Fangren Marauder beatdown, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what
I
it
thundered their team.
Yep. I've always found that I wanted more Ulamog's Crushers when I played the deck. It's like that's usually how I'm going to win.
Yeah, the Crusher is mainly just a way to not lose to the clock.
Yeah, but it's actually pretty good too, because you can get a turn 4 Crusher, and with only one Haunted Fennegraph in the list, if they kill your Crusher, then you have a very small chance of getting your Crusher back, and sometimes that's what you just need to break through, especially in like Tron Mirrors. Tron Mirrors are really weird.
I bet they are.
But yeah, I want to add more Ulamog's Crushers to the list and just go all in the Crusher plan. It's me personally. I don't like Ancient Strings in the list either.
But Crusher doesn't defend you at all. And you will probably have a lot. I'm surprised that the list doesn't run Moment Space.
Well, that's again a testament to the fact that there's no aggro decks. Like, probably the best aggro deck right now is Slivers.
Wow.
Or White Weenie, if you classify that as aggro.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I do, but it's probably the aggro deck of the format.
So I shared with you guys my my spreadsheet for Illusory Tricks, and if you scroll down to the number 9 row, I have my opinion on Slivers.
Can I quote you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Fuck Slivers! Is what the spreadsheet says.
That deck is so annoying.
Yeah, I agree, and they wreak havoc on everything I've been trying to do lately. All my plans just get blown up by Slivers, as weird as that is.
Yeah, and it's the whole deck is like somewhere between 5 and 8 tickets right now, so it's a good budget choice. It was
13
definitely
tickets.
the deck that eliminated most of the decks in the Pauper Gauntlet. It was the biggest villain in the Pauper Gauntlet.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to play against it because they're like, all right, I'll play a blocker, and then they play a flanking sliver. I'm like, all right, well, I'll play another blocker, and then I'll remove your flanking sliver, and then we'll play like a second or a third or fourth lord. And I'm like, well, now I can't block. And they'll play like a plated sliver, and it's like, I can't tendrils you now. Now
they will have 3 lords. That's just how it is. They will have them.
Yes.
There's no way they'll have less than 3.
Yeah.
So if you have removal, you're fine. But if you don't, you're dead.
Yeah, and this is another testament too. It's like I'll play my Crypt Rats. I'm like, all right, I'm good, right? And then they play like plated sliver and a lord, and they're out of Crypt Rat range. I can't, I play Crypt Rat and I can Crypt Rat for 4 next turn, but all their dudes now have 5 toughness. So
yeah, and the thing that's been really bugging me is, I'm sure people who read my articles are well aware that I am really big and on board with enchantment permanents right now. I think that's kind of the way to go. And so one of the ones I'm working with a lot are Circle of Protections, or like Prismatic Circle and stuff like that. And Slivers is just so annoying because they're a multicolor deck, which is normally a terrible thing, but it means that it's like not even worth bringing in Circle of Protection green because I'm not even sure I'm going to get beat down by green creatures.
True.
But never ever attack with them. So it's really frustrating. They have such a quick clock when they actually work. It's just very annoying.
yeah, I was when I played Delver. If I ever came up against a Slivers deck, I was pretty happy. But anymore, I'm realizing that maybe I was just getting lucky before. I mean, Spellstarter does a lot of work against Slivers because nothing they cast is more than 2 mana, except for Hive Strings, which I don't really care about. So I can Spellstarter them into Oblivion, but I'm realizing now that anymore that's just not that great of a plan because I can't spell. Yeah, the flanking sliver really just it messes up my Spire Golem blocking plan.
Yeah, maybe that deck's just a lot better than we think. Because the other aspect I'm having difficulty with is they'll go turn with if I'm playing any deck that gains life. I'm like, okay, sweet, Slivers, all right. And they're like, turn 1, the Poisonous Sliver. I'm like, what? Okay. And then turn 2, 2 more Poisonous Slivers or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I can't beat this.
Yeah.
It attacks on a lot of different angles in weird ways. So maybe it's better than we think. And I mean, it seems like the worst deck to play in a black meta, but it's still one of the better aggressive decks.
It collapses to removal, to spot removal, and it collapses to itself some of the time. That's why it's only number 10. And I suppose that Mono Black's tendency to move away from spot removal into like Grey Merchant Orgies helps Slivers.
Yeah.
Because when there are 7/7 Slivers coming over, they don't care about Grey Merchants.
No, they really don't. All right.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to talk about is Familiar Storm. It still exists, believe it or not.
Yeah, familiar low pressure or what? It isn't storms. It has to be something else.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it Familiar Storm.
Denison deck.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it Familiar Storm.
I actually had this discussion on Twitter with Alex Allman and Justin, and I think we decided on Familiars.
On Familiars.
Just call it Familiars. That makes sense.
On Goldfish, it's familiar.
So, a lot of the problem that I had pre-banning meta with playing Familiar Storm was that it was just too slow. It got ran over by the aggro decks before it could really do anything.
Yeah.
But in today's meta, we don't have that issue, do we? The issue that Familiar Storm has now is counterspells, and that's really pretty much it, I think.
That reminds me, where's Goblins?
Borrowed
yesterday.
It's
dies to Crypt Rats.
Yeah.
Historically, Goblins is supposed to have a pretty good matchup against Mono Black.
I
I
don't
don't know
think
why,
that's the
but
case
I've
anymore.
heard that. Um,
There was a
I
long
don't know.
period where Mono Black Control didn't play Crit Rats.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe this list with the 4 list that you're talking about plays 3 Reckless Abandons, so it can just, use that as a counterspell to their Victim of Nights or whatever.
No, it's a sorcery.
Oh, well, never mind then.
Yeah. I like Reckless Abandon, but I'd rather have a Fire Blast, usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked about this the other day in one of my articles that I think it's probably best to have a split of some sort, because having 2 Fire Blasts in your hand with 3 mountains is just miserable.
Yes.
Or really just 2 Fire Blasts in general, because you can really only use one of them ever, unless you're trying to end it right then and there. So I like to have a split, and I think that this guy, because if this is the list I'm thinking of, I'm pretty sure he's just kind of a budget player. The rest of his sideboard sort of tells me that.
Okay.
No, he's got 2 Gorilla Shamans on his board, so...
Oh, maybe not then.
Which daily
Yeah.
was this? It was Piotrek.
Yes,
the 28th.
that's the one I'm looking at.
Yeah, so the Reckless Abandon sounds like you wanted Goblin Grenade, but it wasn't allowed.
Yeah. Whoa, what the hell? Okay, I was trying to show the list there. There we go. The list is updated on the notes there. That's the Goblins list. Yeah, it's... I don't know. Goblins is... it still dies to Crit Rats, in my opinion, and... if you back that up with a Grey Merchant or 2, some Chittering Rats, they're going to lose to Mono Black in general.
Yeah.
Should have a pretty good Affinity matchup, though.
No, I think the Affinity matchup was pretty much 50-50 before, and Affinity that draws even more cards. Sounds pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe not.
Wait, for Goblins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that matchup's terrible. It's always terrible.
Okay.
Client Shaman is just like unbeatable for Goblins.
True.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know if they're still running that in the sideboard. I guess I haven't been paying attention.
2 in the sideboard for some
But
lists.
yeah, that card is just worse than Crit Rats because it's so cheap.
Yeah, that's true. It's so cheap, you don't have to have an open mana to use it.
Yeah, and now they get value out of it.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Okay, I take back what I said about Affinity versus Goblins. I was just thinking of Gorilla Shaman and Goblin Tinkerer, but never mind. So anyway, yeah, Familiar Storm, or Familiars, as I guess it was. The real problems of the meta, the Stompy and the heavy goblins, are just completely gone from the meta. And you have 4 lone missionaries on the sideboard to deal with burn, so why aren't more people playing Familiar Storm? Familiars.
It was always a niche deck, right? Even when it was really good. Except when it had that card that got banned.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty complicated, so I think people shy away from it.
Yeah, it's hard, it's unfun. Now the win condition is super miserable.
So you win by milling, right?
Yeah. You win by...
the beatdown.
It's faster than I expected. I've definitely lost to it because it's actually still just as bad for BorosKitty as it was before.
Okay.
It's actually probably a more enjoyable matchup now because they kill you quicker.
Yes.
But I don't know. The deck seems okay. I feel like it loses to removal a lot more than it used to. Myself.
Yeah, it can.
More reliance there on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, if you can figure out some way to kill their Sage's Row early, or really any of the pieces, like Sage's Row or the walls or something, then they have to draw into the next one. And they don't have any way to set you back, which I feel like that was sort of the role of Fissure in that deck to me, was they usually had a sort of 2-pronged plan, which was Fissure early and then eventually rebuild your hand back up and then Fissure infinitely,
Yeah.
and now they can't do that, and that is surprisingly helpful to do even against slow decks. So I feel like that's got to be the reason. But the thing about it that's still interesting is that when I do see the list, it's 4-out. I almost never see a 3-1. So it's probably still a really good deck, and people just aren't playing it for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's only 3 or 4 people really that are playing it. It looks like Raging Flump, who's always been like a Fisher player.
Yeah.
Cret UG Riv, who was a Fisher player before the meta, banned, and then like Lorak.
So yeah, he was a Fisher player too.
Yeah.
He played blue-green till the day he got banned. I rooted for him.
If you are playing this Familiars deck, what do you do against Grey Merchant? Isn't this like the prime target for Grey Merchant?
You mill them out on turn 4.
Yeah, what's the...
How likely is that?
It's more likely than you think. Like, when I was playing Familiar Storm, it was usually like a Goldfish on turn 4 without disruption. Turn 5 with a little bit of disruption.
Yeah.
Was when I'd be able to fissure off and go infinite. So that was what the problem was. It was a turn 4.5 deck in a meta where decks were designed to beat you on turn 4. Because that's when they needed to kill you was turn 4. So you can still do pretty much the same thing here. You know, if you get the Flicker, Cloud of Fairies, Mnemonic Wall engine online, then you pretty much win right there. And that usually takes turn 4 to set up.
So
turn 4
Mono Black just disrupts you and then Grey Merchants you to death.
Yes. That's what I think. They disrupt you or they kill your creatures, then they Grey Merchant you.
Yeah, and Affinity goes off long before you do.
Affinity doesn't usually... When I'm playing Affinity, I found that turn 6 is usually the one that I kill them on, if I'm going to do that with Affinity. I could be wrong there.
This deck Goldfish faster than Affinity?
I think it does. I need to test with this list more.
Yeah,
the problem with playing this deck is a lot of people quit on you when you're testing it. It's like they don't want to see you Ghostly Flicker them out to death with Sage's Row on the table.
Yeah, that's miserable. It's horrible.
Don't
do that to people.
Though. It's a lot faster though, because when you get the Flicker and the Sage's Row online, you're milling 4 cards every Flicker. So
at least you have your lands still.
Yes, you do still have your lands, and you can still, you know, if they fizzle, then you can still kill them. But you know, I like Familiar Storm or Familiars. Might try that out again.
One thing about the meta that I thought about earlier, if you look at if you replace Mono Black Control with Izzet Post, this is pretty much identical to the meta about a month after the banning of Grape Shot and Empty the Warrens. There was a period when Affinity ruled the Roost. There was a period when Izzet Post was the #1 deck. And then came the Storm Post decks and killed everyone.
So what you're saying is we need to find a new Storm Post.
Yes, I think we're still in the sort of aftermath of the bannings. The metagame is shifting. It's pretty open. Affinity is...
So you're saying there's plenty of room for my 1-land garbage combo deck to take over.
What I'm saying is exactly this. Evil cards were banned, now people are happy, and then David is coming along to screw everything up again.
Good.
So
yeah,
you will get Haunting Mystery banned.
Is very bad.
That's your mission.
Yeah.
Deal with a really, really bad deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Journey to Nyx
you guys really
is released,
should try it, it's really fun.
When Journey to Nyx is released, I want to see Haunting Mystery banned, okay?
Yeah. Is that the next format or the next
No, you have over the Born of the Gods release, and then it's Journey to Nyx.
Okay.
So because we have to have one banning announcement where Wizards doesn't care about Pauper.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the rule.
There you go. Alright, so let's go and move towards closing this out. How can we get in contact with you, David?
The best way to get a hold of me is follow me on Twitter at Shafawafa5. You can read my articles on MTGO Strat. I do the Thoughtcast series. Or you can find me online at Shafawafa5 on MTGO.
And Dan?
You can find me on YouTube as Magic Gathering Strat. You can find me on Twitter as Magic Gath Strat. And you can also find me on mtgostrat.com.
And I'm Chris. You can contact me online at cweaver on MTGO and on Twitter at cweaver8518, where I tweet pretty frequently complaining about various things that happen to me in Pauper. And this has been Competetive Pauper Cast, episode 11. Thank you guys for listening. Recording off.